Fantastic. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Mar Smaley, and I'm an employment specialist with the SOPA Ontario team. Thank you very much for joining this presentation with our amazing colleague, Martin, our expert in soft skills, cultural communications. Uh, um, and he is with the SOPA Manitoba team. So we'll give it a few minutes to allow some of you to join since we are using a different platform today for this webinar. And then we'll go ahead and start with the presentation. As we're waiting, it would be great if you could type in the chat where you're joining us from today. Just put the city, comma, and the province or country. Some of you probably are already in Canada. Probably others will be in different continents. Oh my gosh, the first one is from Tokyo. It's very late there, I think, right? Probably more than 12 hours. Oh, wow. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. Right. We got Bryn, Manitoba, Agadir, Morocco. Actually, that's my hometown. Well, it's a city, it's not a town, but still. Dhaka, Bangladesh. Wow. All right. We have Brazil, South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria. All right. Ontario, Toronto, Qatar. All right. Oshawa, Haiti, Philippines. Yeah, it should be late there too. We got New Jersey. All right. Winnipeg. Yes, Martin, your team is here. Yeah, Team Winnipeg. Nice. Zambia. Okay. USA, Colombia. But yeah, okay. Calgary, Great Cameroon. Wow. All right. A very diverse group. We got Newfoundland there, India, Iran. Wow, fantastic. New Brunswick. All right. So for the continents, we got South America. Yeah. We got Africa, North Africa, and Sub Saharan Africa. I haven't seen Europe yet. All right. We got Asia. So many places in Asia. Fantastic. All right. Okay, so I think, yeah, we're good here. I'll check quickly how many people are. Oh, wow, 84. Fantastic. Well, great. We're going to go ahead and start again. Yeah, for those of you who just joined, my name is Mar, and I'm an employment specialist with the SOPA Ontario team. Thank you so much for joining the first webinar of the day as part of our job fair. And this presentation will be about combining the soft skills with your workplace values, and it will be presented by our wonderful colleague, Martin Broomrich, who is a soft skills and cultural communications facilitator with the SOPA Manitoba team. Without further ado, Martin, take it away.
All right, thanks, Mar, and welcome everyone to our webinar today. I hope to be as interactive as possible. So that means I have content. I have lots of things to talk about, but I don't need to talk about all of them. You can rest assured that when we are done our time together here, if you have registered and you'd like to receive the content, I will send you a client version of this presentation, along with some of the handouts that I think are quality things to know about and to look through. Some of which have informed my facilitation here today. So excellent, wonderful to be with you. So thank you, Mar, for the introduction of letting us know lots of us are from all over the world. A special hello to Tokyo because my youngest son is studying there right now. So I can tell you in Tokyo, it is just after 11 p.m. in the evening. So I will do my very best to keep you all awake. All right. So no matter where you are from, you are moving to a place, or you're already living in Canada, perhaps, that has a complicated history. And the complicated history is still being worked out. So we are on a path toward reconciliation as a country, meaning that when Canada was settled first mostly by European immigrants, some relationships with the Indigenous people who were here were quite good, and there were treaties that were established. And you can see some of the evidence of the treaties there on the screen. So it has names of treaties at the top. It says Indian Treaty number 3. It's a coin. We don't really use the word Indian anymore. We use Indigenous or Aboriginal, perhaps. Point being there, we're on a path toward reconciliation. Where I am coming to you from is called Treaty 1 territory. It's not the first treaty, even though it's called Treaty 1, and it was made between the Government of Canada, or the Queen, as you can see her on the back of that one coin. So that's known as the Crown. So the treaties were made between the Crown and the different Indigenous nations. Treaty 1 covers pretty well all of southern Manitoba, the province that I moved to in my adulthood for love. All right. I moved from Saskatchewan, which is the western nearest most province to Manitoba. Not too different. So as you come to Canada, as you take part in different conferences or lessons in schools, or just participating in different things publicly, you will get some sort of treaty recognition announcement, or you will get some sort of announcement toward truth and reconciliation and working toward a good future for all people. So I'm doing that to honor the people that have lived here before. Yes, there's a little bit of humor in that slide if you've been reading along while I've been speaking. So there have been people living here for thousands of years, long before the Europeans and the rest of us came. And I think particularly of my part of the world where it can get quite cold in the winter. They survived here, and so will you. All right,
Martin,
so,
I'm so sorry
ahead.
for interrupting. I think
Please.
in terms, yeah, we still see the cover in terms of slides, so it's not moving. Okay, now it's moving to the agenda.
Okay. So what I did is
There
All
you
right.
go.
Well,
Now we can see the slide.
I will go full screen and let's just test this. Are you seeing it changing?
No, I just see I see the PowerPoint and then the slide, so it's not full screen.
Okay, so what I will do, I will just present it in this unprofessional manner.
No, that still works. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, so what we will, on the left side, obviously you see some things that are coming up. I strongly encourage you not to look there.
It's so small,
right.
We can't tell.
Oh, excellent. I know exactly what it says, so let me make it as small as possible. There we go. All right, so thank you, Mar. Of course, I am moving the presentation along, so thank you for that interruption. It's no problem at all.
Of course.
Okay. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to have my introduction. Hi, I'm Martin, and I work with Settlement Online Pre-Arrival here in Manitoba. So specifically, I work with Manitoba-bound clients in the soft skills. That's a bit of a lie because in about 2 hours, I will present a soft skills workshop to SOPA clients who have registered also online, just like this. And they are coming to any place in Canada, not just Manitoba. I've been doing this work for about 9 years. And before that, I worked briefly with another organization called Manitoba Start. Manitoba Start serves clients who are post-arrival. They are here in person, in a classroom, in a one-on-one career coaching kind of session. And you'll hear more about that as we talk about the things coming up. So there's me. You can compare that picture with what you saw earlier, perhaps. That guy's a little younger, has a little more hair. It's time for new pictures. Now, we have our website. Many of you might be familiar with it, and it comes again later in the resources. But just to know, if you want to know more about Settlement Online Pre-Arrival, our website, Arrive Prepared, should do all the explaining that you need about registering and what it's about. Of course, many of you, maybe even most of you, have already been or are clients of SOPA. I'm just going to call it SOPA from now on. Okay, Settlement Online Pre-Arrival is too much. Well, I'd like to introduce you to this fellow. Perhaps you know who this is, and this is a little bit of a quiz then. Don't say it out loud. I don't see the chat. Maybe don't type it in the chat so that other people can sweat a little bit and go, oh, I know who that is. Like, oh, what is his name? Well, I'll give you a little bit of a clue. He has his own brand of hat there, and his initials, TW, are emblazoned on the front of that hat. This is Tiger Woods, of course. And the question is, why is he famous? And the answer would be he's one of the best golfers that has ever played the sport of golf. And then a follow-up question is that the only reason Tiger Woods is famous? And then you go, oh no, Martin, are you going to go there? And I'm like, yep, I'm going there. Tiger Woods had some really complicated relationship history. It's almost like he needed a treaty. But anyway, he's someone who admitted and was caught cheating in his marriage. Not good. Why would you bring that up? Well, let's continue. I'll tell you in a minute. Promise. You're not going to fall asleep, Japan. Stay awake. Who is this man? This is a famous athlete as well, probably considered one of the best of his sport, maybe a little less known than Tiger Woods. This is Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong won the Tour de France, I think it was 6 times in a row. And he did that after beating testicular cancer. So he was a cancer survivor. He had many places in his body that were cancerous, and that got defeated. And then he went on to win the Tour de France. It was either 6 or 7 times. It doesn't really matter. Winning it once would have been spectacular. But is he famous just for winning that cycling race? The answer is no. That's not the only reason. Lance Armstrong won the Tour de France because he was cheating. Also cheating. So, who are these people? Now, this one might be a little faster for most of you. Tiger Woods maybe, Lance Armstrong maybe not as fast. This one might be the fastest for all of you in as far as recognition and brand recognition. Of course, these people are Nike. And then I would ask you, has Nike, perhaps you say Nike, has Nike ever had contracts with famous people that you know of? There's your answer. There they are. What do these men have in common? Yes, they're both endorsees and have been endorsed by Nike using Nike sports equipment and apparel. In fact, that Tiger Woods brand on his hat, as you see it, is a Nike hat with a Tiger Woods sort of sub-brand to it. But what else do they both have in common? Cheaters! Yay! No, not yay. Okay, sad but true. Now, when these cheatings are discovered, one of them loses all their contracts with Nike. It is Lance Armstrong, the cyclist. Nike does not endorse cheating in your marriage, but they said Tiger Woods is the best golfer we've known, and we have a good relationship. We don't condone that his marriage has fallen apart because of his actions, but he did not cheat in his sport. He's still an honest golfer who plays within the rules and things like that. Okay. So Nike has this ideal that when you think about them, you're going to get a certain product feeling. All right. So if you think about Nike, you're going to go, oh yeah, I want to wear Nike clothing when I'm playing tennis, or when I'm out for a walk, or just the shoes are lovely. Whatever it is, they want you to think positive thoughts about them. And it's very hard for them to get you to think those positive thoughts when they're endorsing someone who's cheated in their sport. So I want you to think now. I should back up one step. A little bit of this stuff about the soft skills is how you relate, and how you relate is one of the keys to how you will be perceived in the workplace. Okay, your abilities to relate will represent you. Is Martin a nice person? Is Martin a person who comes on time? Is Martin friendly? Is Martin thoughtful? Is Martin someone who likes to joke with his colleagues but is still professional? So these are all thoughts that help people when they think, oh, Martin, is that a good thought? Or no, Martin, oh, no. Like when Mar knew that I would be doing this presentation, I hope he was about here, maybe even here. All right. So it's the feeling that people get when they think about you. That's your own personal branding. And your soft skills really are the key to that. Notice, I did not say your competency. So how good are you at the job is very important, but it's not even number one as far as people recognizing, do they like working with you? Are you good at your job? It's not even the competency of, let's say your job is in engineering and might require a lot of mathematical skills. It's not even, is he or she good at math? It's, do I want to be in a meeting with this person while we're discussing the numbers? How much aluminum, how much steel, how much whatever. No matter what the math says, do I want to be with them? Do I want to partner with them? And I am aware that in the world, we have some evil things that happen that aren't just history from Canada and its relationship within its borders with its own people. But it's also, through things like slavery, there are still things in the world that need to end. There are people who are still being bought and sold, as far as the sex trade and things like that. So I'm very sensitive when I talk about these things, though I'm quite open and I'm forthright. I'm very sensitive when I say that you are a brand, that you are something of a product when you represent yourself to your employers. But that is not in any way meant to dehumanize you in some strange way, that you're just a brand, that there's no human behind you. The humanity of you is the most important thing. So I'm not trying to degrade that. So if I talk about you as a brand, I'm talking about when people think of Martin Blumrich, what do they think about? So it seems to have worked out pretty well for both Tiger and for Nike. This is Tiger after years of injuries and back problems and all those social controversies about his marriage and his personal life. This is him putting on the green jacket. And the green jacket is a symbol of having just won the Masters golf tournament. That was the first major golf tournament he won, and it is the most recent. And there's his mother and his two children. Oh, pardon me, I'm working from home and there's my phone in the background. We're going to let it ring. And his girlfriend, they're all happy to, celebrate the Masters win with him. And look at the son. He's got a little Nike swoosh on his chest, doesn't he? So what can I tell you? Branding is not the soft skills, but it counts for something in the soft skills. It's worked out well for Nike. Let's try one more experience before we get into our talk directly of the soft skills, okay? So what I want you to think about is, if you are, like I am, a former career coach at Manitoba Start, my job before this one was working with newcomers who mostly had some sort of professional designation. They had come with an education, okay? And like I said, they were now in the classroom, live in person. I could shake their hand if it was culturally appropriate to do so. The people I was working with in the classroom, smart, all right? They are not stupid people. And like I said, they are educated. They've had a chance to go to university, and many of them had at least a bachelor's degree. And they probably then, in that time, weren't just new graduates moving from university into immigration to Canada. They often had at least 5 years of experience in something career related, and they were building their careers in their countries of origin. They were motivated. They weren't lazy people waiting for government programs to tell them, here's some extra free money so that you sit around and don't work. No, they were motivated people. On top of that, they weren't ugly. All right, Japan, you still awake? I'm trying to be funny. They were not ugly people. They didn't have a third eye up here or a second nose growing out the top of their head. And I just say that because, we're human and we're fickle. So we have all these measurements of attraction to a client or a candidate for a job. And so they had all these things working for them, and they would get into their first career-related position, and that position often came with something called a probationary period. And then what would happen, despite all these things, and having handed in a great resume, and having had a good interview, and having started the job, fired. What is wrong with this picture? I had clients who were competent in all ways, okay? And they would sometimes come back to me at Manitoba Start and say, can you help me update my resume? I'm like, oh, sure, but what happened? Why are you here? Is it, well, I lost my job. And I could ask, but I knew what the answer was. I could ask, did you punch the boss in the face? Like, what happened? And I know it wasn't workplace violence. Were you showing up late every day? Like the job started at 8:30 and you were there around 9 o'clock every day for the first 3 months? No, it wasn't punctuality. And that's a pretty easy lesson to learn. And if you have a problem with it, it's a pretty easy problem to improve and fix. The problem was always soft skills. So there was something on the resume hand-in day, whether that was in person or by email or something like Indeed or LinkedIn, that was attractive. And the employer saw it and agreed we should interview this person. And there was something on interview day that made the employer think this could be a good fit. We should hire this person. And so I would be in the classroom and I would ask my clients, why are you here? Why are you taking this workshop in those days live in person? And they would say, well, we have heard that how we do the resume. By the way, my Filipino friends, I know you can say resume because you can say Philippines. So don't say resume because it's not bad to sound like you're from somewhere else. But the Canadian pronunciation is resume, like it's a Z, okay? Our American friends would say Z. So resume. My clients would say, Martin, I've heard that my resume format is not the same here as it was in my previous country, and I need help updating it. Like, what do I put first, and how do I write about things about myself and my experience? So not to pick on the Philippines again, but let's pick on the Philippines again. The resumes I often saw from the Philippines could have things like religious status, like are you Roman Catholic? They could have pictures. Okay, so what do you look like? They could have descriptors of your body height and your body weight. I am so and so tall. I am this many kilograms. They could also have things about marital status. All of those things off the Canadian resume. My clients would also say, I've also heard there's a difference between how people interview in my previous country and in my new culture. And can you help me with interviews? And I would be absolutely happy to, of course. So, and then they would say, and I've heard Canadians work in a different way. So what about this difference in workplace culture? The problem was these were 2-week workshops, and we spent a lot of time on topic number 1 and number 2 and didn't always have the time for the workplace culture. So when the job opportunity came up for me to be working in the soft skills and cultural communication, I said, forget the resumes. There are so many good career coaches that can do resumes with people, and frankly, I hate them. Okay, I don't like resumes. I don't hate the people that do the career coaching. I love them. I don't ever really want to see another resume if I don't have to. But it was always the problem of people coming back. Probationary period had ended or not quite even ended, and they had lost their first career-related job in Canada. And so it was my goal. I don't want to see people lose those jobs. I'd rather teach them about workplace culture, about their branding themselves, about how they come across. I have a background, I have 2 master's degrees. One of them is in counseling. So I do have some skills about working with people and coaching them about how their relationships are working or not working. So here's just one example. This is a cultural difference. And if you were a worker coming from China and you've had some career experience there as a Chinese worker working in China, you would experience your teamwork to be quite enmeshed with each other. You would experience that if there's a group project of 4 people, that almost always the other 3 people know what you are doing, how fast you are working, and you're keeping an eye on what they're doing and how fast they're working, okay? So the teamwork aspect of work in China would be very, very important, and the individualism aspect would only be about 12% important. And then you can see how that changes by looking at that slide. Venezuela, Mexico, Arab countries. As you get further and further down the list, you get higher and higher cultural ways of working that would favor individualism. So now in the United States, you see Canada is the second highest there, 80%. In the United States, if you're working there, you want to be working alone over 90% of the time, even when it is a team project. These are stereotypes, and stereotypes are meant to be broken. And you can go into some workplace in America and say, no, they work in a very Chinese way there. Great. I'm just trying to give you generalities, but I hope you understand. I agree, generalities break down, stereotypes break down. They're just good for the lesson part of it. In general terms, if you are a Chinese worker and you move to Canada or the United States and you start working in a team setting, your soft skills might be very strong and they might be very appropriate for how you relate to people. But what will happen? Inevitably, in this kind of circumstance, you will be seen as nosy, intrusive, not minding your own business, having poor boundaries as far as keeping your attention to yourself. You will be seen as someone who looks like they are the supervisor when you are just a colleague on the exact same pay scale as me. So what happens is the Chinese worker, this is just one example. This has to do with when you're working in team settings. The Chinese worker really has to reevaluate how he or she is doing the job and try to reflect more and more how the colleagues are doing theirs. So in this team setting, the Chinese worker could be seen as all those things that would be, I termed them as negative. I could term them as positive. If I'm in a Chinese workplace in China, the Chinese worker doing those kinds of things, they would be seen as interested, they would be seen as competent, they would be seen as a good team player because they're aware of each other's needs and what's going on today with your project. Do you get the difference? This is a key understanding, but just one example. This is just individualism versus teamwork. So here's some advice. And again, you can take all the notes you want, but I want you to be gaining as much from this as possible. So don't worry if I go quickly. I would say be a good observer. In all my intercultural experience, the people that adapt the fastest are the people that are the most observant. Okay? So when you are observant, you're noticing the differences between your old culture and your new culture. And it's probably doing something in your brain, like a little alarm bell, not a panic, but a little like, and so you go, well, that's different. They're working in a team setting, but everyone is kind of minding just their own business, and it's not very collaborative. But then on Friday afternoon, they have this meeting and they all talk about what they've done this week and what they need to do next week. And then you're like, back to individualism. So when you notice the difference, when you hear that little alarm bell in your psyche, ask questions. When you notice the differences, the soft skills are, I want to encourage all of you, by the way, you already have the soft skills that you need to succeed in Canada. You already have them. You might have to refine some of them. You might have to understand the difference of what does it look like to work in a team, for example. But you already have the soft skills. But you have to combine that now with being a good observer. And when you observe or experience something that is different, you have to ask. Now, you can be one of these really kind of a go-getter kind of newcomers to the job, and so you're asking everybody questions all the time. That's good, but not great. Okay, you're still asking, you're still following the advice. I would like you to, in early on in your job, find someone, if they're not already assigned to you, find someone that you can call a coach or a mentor or a buddy. And this should be somebody who has done the job that you're doing. They might not be in the job right now. They might have done it previously. It might be 2-3 years ago, and now they're like a manager or a supervisor of some sort, or they've just moved into a slightly different job from the one that you're doing. I would like you to find someone, and that's kind of your go-to person as far as asking questions. How do I submit this report? Why does the fax not allow me to do this? How come the meetings always go 15 minutes over? Is that normal? How come, so that you're not asking everyone in the office, but there's one designated person, maybe one or two designated people that are your go-to mentors, someone you can ask a question of. And I would encourage you then how to stay out of trouble when it comes to soft skills and conflict. Never stop learning. Put yourself out there, take opportunities. Of course, you will be nervous. You're part of the human family, but never stop learning. So when there is something you don't know, find out about it. So let's move on to the values a little bit, moving into that aspect of our presentation from the soft skills part. Okay. When you are in an interview, it is very common for you to receive the question, why do you want to work here? And my answer is in my head, not the one I say out loud out of my mouth, hopefully. Duh, I work here because I want to earn money. My family gets hungry. I have a mortgage. I have a cat. I have a car. I need money. So why do you want to work here, Martin? Because I need money. Japan, you still with me? I hope so. Good news, you already have all the skills you need, and it's a matter of reordering them in order to understand what the employer wants or needs. Okay, presenting that in your own branding of yourself to the employer. Here are the skills you're looking for. Here are the skills I have. Ta-da, they match. But then what about the values? Which one is more important, for example? Hard work or knowledge? There's no right answer to that one. Well, what is the job? What is the task in the job that we're doing? Because sometimes just stopping for a second and thinking, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. That's a knowledge thing. It's still work. You're still evaluating. You're not playing a video game. You're not scrolling the internet and YouTube like for fun on the side of your desk. It's still work. But what is more important, like working hard and getting stuff done, or knowledge? And maybe just evaluating, whoa. I don't think if we do it this way that it's going to work out very well. So these are conflicting values. My next slide, unfortunately, I tried to add this yesterday, and make your screen absolutely as big as you can, okay? I had different thoughts in my head about how to present this to you. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There are about 60 different values on this sheet, okay? So the question in the interview, why do you want to work here? Money. I don't want to be poor. I want to retire someday. Yes. That's all good. And at the top of the second column here, you could see the word good income. All right. So money isn't off the list. It could be a key motivator for a lot of things that a lot of people do. I want a good income. I want this job because it pays well. But what else? There are so many reasons for you to do the work and to be the kind of worker that you are that are outside of just earning money. Okay, income isn't the only. And so I don't know how well you can see these different things on the size of screen you're joining us from today. On my laptop, it's big enough. But I had some debate in my mind. How do I present this? Do I do it as different slides and so forth? But I thought later on, if you have been sent a copy of this presentation, then you can see this anyways, if you're not seeing it all right now. And this is not an exhaustive list. It says in the title, a limited inventory, meaning there's the checklist and you can check off, but it's limited. There must be, 500 different workplace values. Now, my encouragement to you is that there is a work, career, a job in Canada that matches your soft skills and your workplace values. I think that the soft skills and the workplace values are more intertwined than most people think. Let me give you an example. When I was in the classroom at Manitoba Start, I would often ask people to do this inventory. And I would ask them, if you choose like 10 of them, what is like your top 5? Okay. What is your top 5? And we would then end up with 15 students in the room. We would do a poll. Okay. So as people gave me their different aspects of what they value in a job, they would tell me different things over and over. And I eventually would get a um, sort of a compiled list of what's the top 5 in the class. Now, it's not on this inventory, but security. Security is one of the values that people might want, meaning if I have a job today, it's a fairly stable job, like it'll be there tomorrow. I don't like being involved in a job with high risk. And in an economy, maybe like oil production, that is like boom and bust, right? Up and down, as a graph would show it. Instead, I just want kind of security, like raising my income a little bit, but mostly just kind of being a steady job. Um, and so clients would compile their top 5 answers to me, and often security would end up being in the top 5 of every class. Almost every class had security as one of the top 5 that reasons why people wanted to what they valued about work. Okay, so then I would ask them, well, that's strange, because you say you claim security, but you just quit a job and moved across an ocean. And so we would have a little bit of good-natured argument and like, okay, prove it to me. You want security, but you just quit a job and moved your family into an environment that could kill you if you go out in the middle of winter. What's secure about that? And so they would push back gently and say, yes, there is a risk, but the risk and reward, we still see it as worth it because we value security so much, we will pursue it in a new context. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. So what I want you to do as clients who are here today in this webinar, you don't have to do it right now. We can provide you this information. Perhaps you can have a copy of the recording as we're recording it. I want you to go through this inventory and to see for yourself what are your top 5 workplace values. Go check off all of them that apply to you. Okay, but if we take some of them, I could often ask my clients in the Manitoba Start classroom, don't tell me what your job is. Don't tell me I used to be a nurse in my previous country. Don't tell me that. Tell me instead, what are your top 5 workplace values? And so if working with others, helping others, right? Meeting people's needs, right? Making decisions, responsibility, right? If these things like were combined in there, I would often say, "Oh, are you involved in healthcare? Like, what is your right? What is your background?" We had people telling us their workplace values, and there was one person whose workplace values also not on this list, but he valued power, like the P word, power. It's not on our list today. This is a slightly different inventory than what I've used in the past. He wanted power, he wanted respect, he wanted responsibility, he wanted a good income. And as he read his top 5 workplace values, the people in the rest of the class started laughing. They're like, "Oh, he sounds greedy. He sounds like a character from a movie who just wants to be the leader." And I said, "Well, stop, everybody. Don't laugh. I like these workplace values, and I like that he's being honest, because every company needs a president. Every company needs a chief executive officer. Every company needs people that are going to be into the rewards and into the risks and into the management of those things." And so I want to assure you that as I'm giving you this webinar, I don't judge any of your cultural backgrounds. Notice when we went through that list a couple slides ago, here we had this idea of China all the way through to United States. I didn't say which one was right or wrong. I didn't say which one was better or worse. All I said is they are different from each other. So I'm not saying that one is superior, the other one is inferior, and you should not be part of the inferior. Like, obviously this one's better. But just because I live in Canada and I can identify where that would be on some sort of metric doesn't mean I think that that's what everyone should do, because that's where I am. That's called an immature view. All right. If I were to say, you got to be like me, because if you're not, I'm threatened, or I think I'm better than everyone, even though I can't prove it. We're not saying that. Obviously, people like Mar and we work with newcomers because we believe that We can live together. We can make a good society. We can create opportunities. We can invest in each other. We can be happy people. Goodness, there's enough war in the world today where people who really just should be friends keep hurting each other for fun. Well, we've been doing this for thousands of years. Well, let's keep hurting each other. Okay. So one of the things that I want to make you aware of is that when it comes to giving and receiving feedback, there are different ways that Canadians work. This is a key soft skill thing. I'm working through this right now with a workshop that I'm leading online. Part 2 of that is coming up about an hour after I'm done here. If you are a SOPA client, registered for that. And I've seen some of the names. I'll see you again. You get 3 hours of Martin today. Oh, fun. Sorry, Japan, you have to go to bed. Okay. The office culture will be different in the trades that's out in the field. So when you give and you receive feedback, these are going to look quite varied from each other. And I don't know what all careers you, as newcomers to Canada, are looking for. But I, again, invite you to be good observers, good listeners, and then good question askers of the feedback kind of situations, okay? Canadians often use softeners to make things sound less assertive than they mean. So just on the word assertive, let's define this quickly. If you asked me, Martin, how are you today? And I was rather shy and I went, and I'm looking down and I'm nervous and I don't seem to have a real warmth to me. I would say, I'm fine. How are you? Right? I look passive. I look like I'm ready for you to lead the conversation because I don't want to be the focus. You tell me whatever, I'll be fine with it. I'll just go with it. If you asked me again, Martin, how are you today? And I said, fine, thank you. I'm doing quite well. How are you doing? How are you enjoying our webinar so far? Right? I'm looking into the camera as if we were in the same room. I'm looking into your eyes. I have a forward body motion. I don't look shy. I sound interested. My tone of voice is strong. It's friendly. It's warm. It's assertive. And then, of course, there's the one that's called aggressive. If you asked me, Martin, how are you today? I'd be like, what's your problem? This is like the 3rd time in 2 minutes you've asked me. You want to fight? Like, what is wrong with you? Okay, now, I'm being aggressive. I'm leaning forward. My eyebrows do the cartoon thing where they get a little lower in the middle. And my tone of voice is like quick, snappy words, and I'm angry. Of course, we all agree that assertive is the right way to act in a culture, in a workplace culture. You don't want to look too shy and passive. You definitely don't want to come off as aggressive. But what you need to be a key observer of is that your form of assertiveness works in your new workplace. So, as a cultural stereotype, I would say that some of my Arab friends, some of my Israeli friends, what they have in their current workplaces in their previous countries, okay, their countries of origin, looks more assertive than looks more aggressive than what my assertive as a stereotypical Canadian workplace worker would look like. I would say as a stereotype, and again, these things break down and they're not rules for everybody. I would say that my Filipino friends, as they relate in the Canadian workplace, can often come across as too shy or too passive. And they need to speak up a little bit more. They need to, not that they're not friendly, but they need to put themselves out there a little bit more. Like, hey, where does everyone go for coffee break anyways? Like something like that. Where you're not like, I'm just going to work at my office and I don't know where they go and no one's invited me yet. And okay. So I'm not, again, making fun of anyone. I'm just trying to give you examples so that whatever aspects of these examples are true for you, you have a bit of something to work with. Like, I'm not just telling you things, I'm giving you ideas of what this looks like in my imagination and what it could look like in your workplace future. So Canadians often use these softeners. So instead of saying, you should fix that, that's very direct. That's the minimal amount of words. A Canadian would probably say something like, I think it would be good for you to have another look at that. Now, that's a big difference. You should fix that. Or, I think maybe you should have another look at that. I think Well, that's already a softener. It's a me statement instead of a you statement. You should fix that. I think maybe. No, I think you should. But we've softened it again. I think maybe you could have another look at that, or you should. Should? Well, there's a chance that maybe if I'm busy, you didn't think I really should because something else more important came up. So the whole idea of having these kinds of things with our assertiveness being the focus. Your assertiveness might not look the same as it looks in a Canadian workplace. Just be aware of that. Be a good observer of it. I had a client early on, about 9 years ago in my SOPA experience. He was from Israel. And as I met with him, he learned very quickly that the assertiveness that he was working with was going to come off as aggressive. And so we met online. We met camera to camera, face to face like this, screen to screen. And I asked him to practice some feedback things with me. And then he went into his work week with his Israeli colleagues, all of whom knew that he was moving to Canada. And he would practice his assertiveness in a Canadian way with these colleagues. And they would just laugh at him and say, "Stop being so Canadian. You're not in Canada yet." And he's like, "I know, but I'm just practicing." So anyway, there are roadblocks when you are giving and when you are receiving feedback. There's a reference there. I encourage you to check out YouTube videos with Lionel Laroche. He himself is a newcomer. Well, how do you say newcomer? He's probably been in Canada 25 years, but he got his training in engineering in France and became a petroleum engineer here in Canada, but then quickly realized that the way teams worked internationally was much more interesting to him than figuring out oil pressure in a barrel and in pipes and whatever. So petroleum distillation, even though he had a PhD in that, he became an expert in intercultural group work. And all of his videos online, I think, are an excellent resource for you. So if all you write down, if you never look at these slides again or the recording, just write down the word Lionel Laroche, that name, on a little piece of paper nearby, and you'll do well. So there are receiving roadblocks. These are listening roadblocks. Sometimes our values don't matter. Not that they don't matter, pardon me. Sometimes our values don't line up. So what I'm expecting and what you're giving are not the same. And so my reason for listening, I'm looking for certain kinds of things in what I'm listening for, and I'm not getting them, or I'm assuming I got them, but that's not what you were trying to communicate because your values were different at the time. There are times when growing up, like I have a brother and a sister, and then I'm the youngest of the 3 children. There are many times when my sister would say something to me, and I would go, yeah, I understand. And then she would say, "No, you don't understand." And then she would explain it again. And then I'd go, yeah, I get it. And then she would say, "No, you're not listening. You're not getting what I'm saying." And then I'm like, okay. This time I'm listening with an open mind. I'm not thinking I already knew what you were going to say. Tell me again. What did you mean? And then she tells me the thing and I go, "Oh, now I get it." And then she goes, "Yeah, see, I knew. Now you get it." When you know people very well, like a brother and sister relationship, those examples become a little more common. You have to look for those things to happen in a workplace. You have to be gentle and kind, assertive still, about how that communication happens. But when there is a mismatch of values, often what someone's trying to tell you and what you think they're trying to tell you is not the same thing. Okay, so there could be a difference in status. If someone has a lot more power, I'll give you an example. There was my mom worked for close to 50 years as a nurse, okay, in the hospital, in the operating room in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. That's a real name place of a real place, by the way. That's where I was born and raised, in the city of Saskatoon in Canada. My mom was the supervisor for an international student. And I don't think the international student, to be fair and to be kind, I don't think this student nurse should have been there because her English was not good enough. She really did not understand instructions. But she was from a culture where a supervisor speaks. If the supervisor speaks, you just agree and you say yes. Okay. So my mom would tell the student nurse something, and the student nurse would be like, yes, 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 yes. And this drove my mother crazy. So much so that she came home after that work and told us all about it at supper. I don't know what this young woman is doing in our hospital, and I don't know why she keeps saying yes, yes to me when really she doesn't understand anything I'm saying. Oh, she was frustrated. This was not a good situation, especially in healthcare. If you're going to cut me open and do some things to my body, I would like to know that the people on the team are communicating well and understand each other's instructions. Um, Years later, I figured out the student nurse must have been from a culture where you just agree with a superior. So my mom, being the experienced nurse, has the higher status. And so the young student nurse, no matter what is being said, no matter if she even understands it, status says she will say, yes, yes, agreed. Okay, yes, 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 yes. That she's not allowed to say no, that she's not allowed to say, what do you mean? Can you please clarify? Now, again, she might not have had the English skills to do that, but I think she might have had stronger English skills than my mom expects because she was in the hospital as a student nurse. But I think the culture piece of status got in the way of their successful healthcare relationship. My mom did not understand that, yes, yes, agree with your supervisor piece. And the student nurse did not understand that you don't need to show that kind of deference to someone of higher status in that Canadian workplace as highly as you need to show understanding of the content of what was being said. So, do you understand? The student nurse probably had strong workplace values, probably was a strong communicator, but the cultural value of respect overtook the cultural value of showing understanding. And so these two things clashed in that workplace. And years later, doing the job I did, my mind went back to that story from my mom coming home from the hospital, just frustrated with the student nurse. And I thought, these are people, my mom and the student nurse, that need a cultural lesson in the soft skills and the importance of workplace values. Honestly, and not to be funny and not to overstretch it, before someone gets killed, right? Before some medical accident happens, that later on, when they investigate what happened, then they learn all these lessons in intercultural communication. So we have all kinds of different things that we're going to skip through here. There are some other receiving, or shall we say listening, roadblocks that you see on the screen there, but I'll leave them how they are for now. There are sending roadblocks too. So I mentioned that assertive is the right way to act, no matter what culture you are in, and that what assertive looks like in those different cultures can be quite different from each other, right? Israeli assertive or Filipino assertive looks different than Canadian assertive. Sometimes there might be overlap and you don't really need to make many changes at all, but sometimes you need to act more passively or more aggressively than what you're used to, because that now falls into your current context's understanding of assertiveness. So the sending roadblocks have to do with feelings. And there are things that come across in our messaging, in our sending, that aren't exactly assertive, they aren't exactly passive, and they aren't aggressive either. They are something we combine to say, that's passive aggressive. So there's a fourth way that if you ask me, Martin, how are you today? I can say, fine, I'm fine, whatever, how are you? And you can see in my tone of voice and how I'm not looking in the eyes or into the camera in that example. You can hear it. You can feel it. Martin is upset, or he's trying to be rude, or he's trying to make me ask, what's wrong? What's the matter? Nothing. Everything's fine. Like maybe you have people in your life who are like this. And if you do, I am so sorry for you. Okay. Because it's a lot of work to deal with the passive aggressive. One of my colleagues from Saskatchewan, in SOPA, once mentioned to me as I was talking about these kinds of things, aggressive. Aggressive says, I don't care about you. I only care about me. Passive says, I don't care about me. I only care about you. Assertive says, I care about both of us. I'm doing fine. How are you? Are you enjoying the webinar so far today? Right? There's mutual, I care about you, I care about me. And passive aggressive says, I don't care about either of us. Martin, how are you today? Fine, whatever. I don't care. So there are roadblocks that come in our sending. They might come because of our understanding of what exactly is assertive. There are times, by the way, to be passive. There are times when if someone has a gun in your back and says, give me all your money, fine, whatever. No, 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 no. Don't be passive aggressive. Just be passive. Okay. I have a wife, I have kids. Don't shoot me. Here, my wallet's in my back pocket. Just take it. Right? I'll feel like awful later. It's trauma, but I'm still alive. There are times to act aggressive. Listen, everybody, there's a fire next door. Everyone get out. Yeah, excuse me, Martin. We're in the middle of a business meeting right now. We're trying to settle a very expensive contract. I don't care. There's a fire next door. Get out. Right? This is aggressive behavior, but it's appropriately aggressive. It's like, do this, do it now. I don't care. There's nothing more important than my message right now. But most of the time, right, we're agreed. Assertive is just the right way to communicate. Sometimes things are unclear or imprecise. Anger and different emotions get in the way of our ability to act the right way. And so I've already given this example here. We have a few minutes left. I have a few helpful resources here. Let me just talk through them really quickly. 30 Ways to Shine as a New Employee, Denise Bissonnette. I have seen that this website sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. So hopefully it's up and running when you go check. But it's just really good ideas for people from any culture moving into a new job. And one idea is with our level of assertiveness, and that Canadians, when they give you feedback, will often use softeners. So when you get that first employee evaluation, you don't want it to be your last. You don't want the probationary period to be almost over before someone says, Martin, I don't think this is going very well. You have quite a few things that you need to improve. And now that's very assertive in a Canadian way for someone to say that to me. So how about, how about I, as a new employee, ask the supervisor, do you have some time in the next week? Can we sit down at coffee or at lunch or even make an appointment in each other's calendars to just let me ask you how I'm doing and how do you think things are going with my new job? Oh, that takes courage. It takes courage to say that. You could be up for some surprise as well, Martin. I'm glad you asked because, this or that's not going so well. The Jeff Suderman article, Leading Globally, Understanding Cultural Assertiveness. It's an interesting article. It has a chart in it about different country cultures. I don't usually like stereotyping by country. Those of you who are from Nigeria or India, many other countries, you have multiple cultures within your countries. And so not everyone works or acts in the same way in India as other people from India, or people from Philippines as other people from Philippines, and so forth, okay? Now, Jeff Suderman, in his article, it's country kind of culture, and there's some contradiction because he might list some countries twice. Talking about passive or assertive, he might put a country like Switzerland in both categories, and then you go, what do I do with that one? So I'm not saying there are no contradictions in that one, but it's still a useful resource. The Ontario Human Rights Commission, they had a ruling on Canadian experience. You can read about it there. Basically, it means in Ontario, it is illegal for employers to ask this question in a job interview. Do you have any Canadian experience? Okay, we can see that as a stupid question anyways. I just gave you my resume, and all my experience says Nairobi, Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya. And the last one just ended last month. How much Canadian experience do you think I've had time to get? And like, can you not read a resume? So you might think that way about the employer. In your head, you're thinking, what a stupid question. They're not allowed to ask that question at all anymore because it was seen as a form of racism and discrimination against newcomers, people from other cultures that maybe the employer didn't want to hire. Now, let me tell you, some employers, I think it got to be trendy to ask that question, and they weren't even aware why they are asking the question. It just, oh, I should be asking about Canadian experience. The reason is, like in my Manitoba Start workshops, yeah, resumes are important, sure, interviews are important, but the Canadian workplace culture, can you teach me about that? There are differences between how we work from each other all over the world. We can all be hardworking. We can all be motivated. We can all be skilled, but there are still differences how we put that motivation and skill into practice. The Ontario Human Rights Commission got so many complaints from newcomers because they were getting this question all the time. And then the newcomers were complaining, see, this is racism. I'm not being hired because of my accent, my color of my skin, my country of origin, my culture, my religion. There's something in my background that doesn't match the majority here. And because of it, I'm not getting a job. And I want to say to you strongly, Canadian employers are not being racist. Again, it's a stereotype. There probably are some Canadian employers that you don't want to work for because they're run by racists. But Canadian employers are not asking this question, do you have any Canadian experience, to weed you out. They're trying to include you. They're trying to see, like, you know what? If I hire you, I can show you where the washroom is. I can teach you about the schedule. I can give you a computer and a password and a nice office. I can coach you about how to do the pay submission so that you get paid every 2 weeks. I can teach you all kinds of things, but I don't have time to teach you to be a good observer, to understand differences between workplace cultures, and to ask questions if you have them in a culturally assertive and appropriate way. I don't have time to teach you that. So if I'm going to hire you, I'd like to know that you know how to work in a Canadian way. So let me give you this little interview tip here. If you are in a place where they ask you about Canadian experience, legally this has to be outside of Ontario because in Ontario they're not allowed to. If you get that question, you can say, well, as you can see on my resume, all my experience right now is from Nairobi, Kenya, but I have been putting work in to understand the Canadian workplace culture. So I think if you hired me, you would see very quickly that I can adapt to how Canadians work, that I have a good intercultural understanding of how work is done differently here than from my previous country. So those kinds of things, all right? That's a resource there. You can read more about it there. I find the whole situation that newcomers had to complain kind of sad because it meant two things. Employers didn't know why they were asking the question so often, and neither did employees, neither did the newcomers. And it wasn't weeding out, it was weeding in. I like your skills, I like your education, I like your experience, but I don't have time to teach you this other stuff. If it's okay with you, I need to know that if it's okay with you, I need to know that you can work in a Canadian way, that you are quickly adaptable, that I don't have to train you and then after 6 months let you go because there are such cultural problems of how we communicate that it's just not a good fit. Okay, and then there's the working with others tip sheet. I'll just ignore that for now. So to review, you have soft skills, but you need to adapt. Okay, you have all the soft skills and you have the right values, but they can conflict. They can come in different order than what you're used to. And so it's a matter of being a good observer and reprioritizing which of your values need to be highlighted most often to the most people in workplace culture. There's nothing wrong with being a hard worker, nothing wrong with wanting a lot of responsibility, a high pay, a position of power, but how you go about that, how those workplace values are expressed, it makes the key to you not just surviving your job and keeping it, but thriving in your job and getting those managerial positions or whatever it might be that you are aiming for in your career. So I want you to be people who can give and receive feedback well. And I hope that you invite feedback from people because, as a stereotype, Canadian employers, supervisors, whether they're Canadian or born and raised somewhere else, people in Canada, those supervisors are likely to be more passive in giving the feedback than what you would want. One of the high workplace values of Canada is honoring different people's dignity. And so it's very hard for us to tell someone, hey, you're doing it wrong, because we're afraid that you might feel shamed. We're afraid that we might cut into your dignity and your self-esteem, which is a contradiction because it's almost like Canadians would rather see you lose your job than have to insult you. Like, oh, I didn't want to tell him that he had body odor. Oh, I didn't want to tell her that she was talking too much during the meetings. Oh, I didn't want to tell him, whatever it is. And then he or she, they got into trouble. So we've gotten to what is the last slide. Let me give you the second last one there. Here's the last one indeed. Leave this up for a little bit while we talk. Mar, anything in the chat as far as questions?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing the amazing insights on branding and staying out of trouble in the workplace and providing relatable stories and examples in the process. We definitely have a few questions. Before we address those, just a quick reminder to our clients who have not landed yet. If you're intrigued and would like to learn more about the Canadian workplace, please get in touch with any SOPA colleague and ask them to help you register with a few courses that we have, and it could be facilitated, it could be self-guided, and also now we have live workshops. I'm sure our intake counselors talked about that. All right, a couple of quick questions. A couple of clients asked if we can get a copy of this amazing presentation. Yes, so that will be a very quick question to get out of the way. Martin, can we share the presentation with the clients?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Like the information I have in there, it's all my research or it's referenced as far as others' research. So you can use it. You can reference me if you use it. You can use it just for your own learning, of course. How we're going to do that? Listen, dear people registered for this webinar.
That's something I will. Yeah, that's something I'll coordinate with. Go ahead.
Yeah, we need to look into that. So give us a day or two. Okay.
Yeah.
I gave. How about this? I'll put it in the chat pod. I have my email. Now, I don't want to get a bunch of emails from you. My email is now in the chat pod. Hopefully I typed it correctly. Yeah, martinb@alteredminds.ca. If a week goes by and you still haven't received this presentation for some reason, send me an email and I'll gladly say hi and send it to you. The other thing is, I don't want you to say, here's my resume. What do you think? Not going to do it. Okay.
We have other colleagues for that. Fantastic. All right. The other question we have is individualism more important than teamwork in Canada?
Yes. There are ways in which, and this might be hard depending on your cultural background to grasp, there are ways in which you advance in some cultures as a team. And in Canada, the promotion happens to the individual. The evaluation happens to the individual. And the work gets shared. Certainly, there are certain tasks and careers that you cannot just do on your own. Like I cannot design an oil refinery, even if I am a petroleum engineer, on my own, right? Come back in 10 years, I'll have it done for you. So yeah, individualism is important. And I would say that culture, I should say this about culture, is it moves. It's not static. Culture changes and adapts. And in my lifetime in Canada, many things have changed in Canadian culture. So be aware and be observant of the movement of culture too. I would say since my father entered the workplace in 1969 in Canada as a German immigrant, okay, he would call his employer or supervisor Mr. Last Name. And now Canadian workplace culture is a lot more informal. So he would call his supervisor Terry or Jeff or whatever. But just because the naming has become less formal doesn't mean it's less professional.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make rude jokes about sexuality. You can't talk about getting drunk last weekend just because you're now on a first name basis. you're the same level of professionalism, okay?
Mm-hmm. Very good advice. Amazing. All right. And we have another question. Has COVID affected professional culture?
That's an excellent question. I think it should have and could have and would have. I think that there are lots of examples, but I can't guarantee any of them. The most obvious example in Canada, Mar, you can back me up if you've heard of this or not. There's a major negotiation underway between Government of Canada employees, like people who are working for Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada, who are issuing your visas and making sure that your papers are in order when you become permanent residents. These people are negotiating with the government that employs them. Can we please just work from home? Right? So COVID changed where we work. So it obviously changed how we work.
Mm-hmm.
And the workplace culture was affected professionally because you don't see your colleagues every day anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the government is saying, no, we want you to come back to the office. We are paying for these buildings. We have high rent. We think your work efficiency is better when you're in the office. We don't like that you're taking your dog for a walk during break time, whatever it is. So yeah, professional things have changed through COVID. I had one other example in my mind. Oh, yes. People like Mar and me, when 2019 came, in this part of the world, it was 2020 before COVID-19, really. For us, it could have been called COVID-20 as far as the effects of it in North America. Mar and I would have been professionals in the top 5% of using technology for meetings and sending things and whatever. And within about a month of people working remotely, I went to about the middle of the class. So as far as my competitive marketing of myself, like I know how to do online learning. If I were to brag about that now to an employer, because of COVID-19, my professional abilities have gone, yeah, they're still good. And I still research and I still work with new technology, but I'm about as good as everybody else now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, COVID changes, maybe not the workplace culture that directly, but it certainly has changed our own self-evaluation of our skills.
Absolutely agree there. Amazing. And we got another question here. In a remote or hybrid work environment, how can we demonstrate and enhance soft skills like teamwork, adaptability, and time management?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your question. You know what? I'll just give you an interpersonal example that's happening on screen right now. Mar and I never met each other. We had been colleagues for years, but the only context we'd had to be together would be on a screen in an environment. And then about 2 months ago, we both had the chance to travel for work, and we met each other, and we gave each other a hug, and we enjoyed some meals together. And then we said goodbye, and then people sent pictures of our time together. So, it's about the same. It depends on the person and your values. Like if you're kind of a private person here on the screen and in the meetings that you have online, you're going to be a kind of private person when you meet your colleagues in person. I would just, I guess, encourage you, as far as the soft skills and the teamwork, be consistent. The adaptability might change just because it's more convenient to hand someone a piece of paper than to send them an email attachment. It's just the nature of being in an office together or working remotely together. Time management, I don't think really there's a big difference. How can you demonstrate that you are good at time management? Is all the tasks you do, get them done on time, get them done well. Don't need reminders. Don't come to meetings and say, oh, I only finished half of that. It'd be no different than if you're working in person.
Hmm.
So demonstrating those things would be quite easy. Adaptability really does have to do with use of technology. Before we met today, about half an hour before this presentation, I sent Mar an email that had my PowerPoint attached to it just in case something goes wrong. And all you can hear is my microphone. So I would say to Mar, next slide, please, next slide, please. And he'd have to be the one controlling the presentation. So this idea of adaptability, I would just say, if you're in person or you're hybrid or you're completely remotely, know your environment and
Hmm.
how to work in it. So I've done enough online presentations to this negative stereotype. If something can go wrong, it will, like,
Yeah.
so I'm not that negative of a person, but I plan for that. So I have a couple backups, right? Anyhow, hopefully, Judeline, that answers well.
Amazing. And yeah, so we got a few other questions. And yeah, so the next one, to what extent should we consider the percentages shown under individualism versus teamwork as descriptive versus prescriptive?
I would say, as an observer, all of it is descriptive.
Mm, mhm, mhm,
Prescriptive is now how you interpret it. So all of it
mm,
is just a description. You might even have the wrong interpretation of the description. So definitely, it looked this way, so I did it. Yeah,
mm,
that's going to work most of the time, but you're going to get in trouble in the times when it doesn't work. So
mhm,
don't take things. Especially a moment ago, I said culture is not static. Culture is fluid and it's changing. So never take statistics from sociology and the culture of work and write them in stone and say this is how it's going to be until the minute I retire. You work with them and you adapt to them and you adapt from them. um, I would say they're almost purely descriptive, but then you get to figure out moment by moment, job by job, project by project, how much do these apply to you. You can only do that by being a good observer, being a good question asker, feeling things out, and sometimes having really just forthright, honest communication with people. Mar, am I emailing you too much? Did you appreciate getting that email earlier? Or should I have just done one email instead of six? Like having good communication, it's going to help you lots.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And right, so the next question is a little specific. So Brennan asked, what is the best advice for someone trying to get into the sports industry in Vancouver, like working for the Canucks?
Okay, Brandon, and all of you, networking.
Mm,
Networking. Okay. I'll confess something to you here. And maybe hate is a little strong of a word, but I hate LinkedIn. I hate
mm,
it. To me, just me, descriptive, not prescriptive.
yeah.
I think it's like high school. It's a little bit like the popular kids are trying to be popular. And I don't know if
Mm,
that's like that from your part of the world, if you even know what I'm talking about, the popular kids or what. But LinkedIn, to me, the minute I retire, I'm deleting my account. I'm going to leave my email there and say it's been lovely connecting with you all. If you ever want to reach out, here's my email. And then I'm going to be out of there as fast as I can. But networking is the key. And you don't have to do it all through LinkedIn. Brandon, what are you showing? Now, this is a bit of a pun because of your name. What are you showing in your brand that
mhm,
you are on brand as brand on? Like what are you showing that you should work for the Canucks based on what your interests are, what your hobbies are, what your experience is? Now, people, if you don't know who the Vancouver Canucks are, they are in our part of the world called hockey. In your part of the world, maybe called ice hockey. A professional sports team in the best hockey league in the world, and they have jobs. You name it. Yes, working with the athletes, physiotherapists, coaching, whatever. But they have jobs in marketing. They have jobs in medicine. They have jobs in front office, managerial, you name it. Okay. So you can work with the Canucks and not even be an athlete and not even be able to skate on ice. So, Brandon, the best advice for someone like you is to find people on LinkedIn who are involved in professional sports, in hockey in British Columbia, in Hockey Canada. Start making lists of different Okay, this is interview advice, but I'm going to adapt it really quickly to Brandon. There are people who, in their interviews, they prepare, and I always ask my clients when preparing for an interview, know the employer. Who are the Vancouver Canucks? How long have they been in existence? Who is the president of the company? What is their financial situation? Research the company. Number two, know the industry. Know the industry. This is professional sports. If you want to get specific, it's professional hockey in North America. If you want to get specific in Canada, that's a different business than some of the teams Vancouver competes against because they have a different dollar, okay, different value, different business models. Then, okay, so I said know the employer, know the industry, and know specifically the job. Because if you know the industry, you know the competitors, you know how other people are working, and you can use that in your interviews. Well, if I went to work for the Calgary Flames, they would pay me this much, right? Like, and not that you want to be like, hey, you have to hire me, and I need, it's a negotiation. So networking is the one-word answer. As you can tell, Martin can expand on almost any topic and needs to. So the best advice is to find those people who are working in sports in Vancouver. Brandon, you can email me personally, and I'll give you a little more specific answer to that question because I don't know how many of you know Prince Harry from the British royal family. He runs something every few years called the Invictus Games. It's for people who are combat veterans. This is happening in Vancouver soon, and I know someone who is on the planning committee. So unless you asked about the Vancouver Canucks, you'd never know that Martin knows someone who might know someone. But Brandon, email me later and I'll get you some contact info.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Martin, for those insights. All right, we got quite a few questions coming in. And a client asked, I would like to ask if there are any programs by SOPA that offer more engagement or one-on-one or two-way interaction with clients when it comes to soft skills practice.
Mm-hmm. So if you are in a pre-arrival state, like not landed in Canada yet, you can register for SOPA and expect to receive our services, usually for about a month after you have landed, okay? We are a pre-arrival service. We try to only meet with clients who are in a state of pre-arrival. Post-arrival, we have lots of good agencies and lots of good career coaches, like my colleagues at Manitoba Start, for example, who would love to meet with you and give you that kind of advice as well, okay? So in the soft skills courses, you can take the courses, you can be interactive in the workshops that we also offer in place of the courses, if that's more convenient for you. But you can also make one-on-one appointments with me, with people like me who work in the area of Canada that you are moving to. It's very simple to do. Once you are a SOPA client, you just email your facilitator and say, I'd like to set up an appointment to just be able to talk for an hour. And if that works well, maybe a week or two later, you do it again. The client from Israel, who I mentioned in the presentation, he and I met a few times online when he was still in Israel. And that's 9 years ago. About 3 years ago, I went to his citizenship ceremony when he became a Canadian citizen. So, lovely stuff, right? Just reach out. It's not going to be too hard to set up and have screen-to-screen interaction like we're having here today.
Perfect. Right. Sorry, I'm multitasking here, answering some questions in the chat as well. And somebody asked if you can get the recording. Yes, you will after the job fair. And then, another question. What are some common mistakes that newcomers to Canada make regarding soft skills, and how can they avoid them, in your opinion?
Okay. Good. I think the common mistakes are with the big categories of assertive. So when someone does not put themselves out there assertively enough and they look shy and passive, the Canadian supervisor will take that as someone who's not very interested or hardworking. You might have gotten all the job done. You might have been very qualified and done it very well, very quickly, to a high degree of satisfaction of everyone else, but you don't interact with people in the same way that Canadians would. That's a soft skill problem. I'm not asking anyone to be fake. I'm not asking anyone to be someone that they're not. But when someone is speaking to you, Can you demonstrate the level of Canadian assertiveness that you see around you in the office or otherwise in the job site? Common mistake, really, I think, is not being a good observer.
Mm,
I think anyone can adapt their soft skills very, very quickly. I mentioned a
mm,
couple times in the presentation, you already have the ability to be kind. You already have the ability to work hard. It's how do you demonstrate the hard work? It's how do you demonstrate the kindness? Adapt it quickly. I'll give you one example. When I was career coaching, I had a young woman, she was from India. And many of the clients from India, when they speak to a supervisor or a person of higher authority, like student to teacher, they'll use the word sir a lot. Well, hello, sir. How are you, sir? Here's my resume, sir. And so there was a lot of sir. And I said to her, it's culturally different. It's not exactly a mistake. It's not a big problem, but it's culturally different for you to continue to call me sir. So please just call me Martin. And she would say, okay, sir. So right away she made the mistake again. And it's not a big deal. No one's going to lose their job because they kept calling the supervisor sir or ma'am instead of their preferred first name. But what would happen in subsequent meetings with this young woman is when she would say, well, hello, sir. How are you, sir? I would say, I'm fine, ma'am. How are you, ma'am? And I started to just a little just gently mock it a little bit, right? And so that's a gentle example, and that one won't get you fired. But still, start calling me Martin. If you're still
mm,
doing this a week or two later, you're not adapting. Like, it's not a big problem. You called me sir. It was still respect. You're still being kind. But please, call me Martin. So that's a small example. And then there are obvious ones where people just work in such varied ways that it really doesn't match. And those are problems much more quickly of significance.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. The next question is actually a great one. I can't wait to hear your answer, Martin. All right. So, do you have some tips to help newcomers deal with ambiguity during conversations when they don't understand local references or jokes?
Thank you for the question. What was the word again? Ambiguity?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Okay. So people will read your eyebrows. I talked about that assertive and aggressive thing, like the cartoons. If you draw a cartoon and it's aggressive, now this looks angry and this looks curious and this looks just kind of happy. You know what I'm saying? The people will read your face, and you need to become good at asking the questions. Even yesterday, I was in a meeting and I just didn't hear the word properly. And I said, sorry, Val, what did you say there? We are coming up to the next. And then she filled in the word. I'm like, okay, thank you. So sometimes it's an issue of hearing, but if you don't understand what a word means, that's fine. One of my last slides said, be open, honest, be willing to laugh. I'll tell you a quick story. The person that founded Manitoba Start, her name is Fatima. Fatima is an immigrant from Portugal. She's now retired, living the good life of old age and great health. Lucky her. She founded Manitoba Start. But before that, she worked in a job where they went out to lunch to a conference. And in the conference, there was a speaker like me, blah, 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 blah. And the speaker would get questions like I'm going right now. And the speaker would begin each response with the phrase, first of all, what you need to understand is, right? So there was a lot of whoever the speaker was, he was often saying, first of all, with a little bit of background before giving the more complete answer. So Fatima went for lunch with her colleagues, and the colleagues asked, how are you enjoying the conference so far? She said, it's great, but I don't understand the speaker. He's always talking about parties. And they're like, well, what do you mean parties? And she said, well, he answers a question and he says, festival. What? Why is he saying festival? You need to be good at the soft skills. Festival, you need to understand assertive. Why? And they all laughed. They said, no, Fatima, it's not festival. It's first of all. So this was not just ambiguity of not knowing the meaning. This was just in her brain's dictionary. She's listening to the accent or the speed or the rate of speech. And she's not understanding that he's not saying party. He's not saying festival. So the only way Fatima improves is if at lunchtime, when they ask her, how are you understand or not how are you enjoying the speaker? How are you enjoying the conference? If she's honest and says, I don't get it. What's this about the parties? She never learns. She never learns. She just pretends she understands, and that gets you in trouble. So you have to
Mhm.
be quite assertive when there's ambiguity. Be like Fatima and say, what's with this all these parties? Like, I don't understand.
Mhm.
If you have a career, like if you have a buddy or mentor, like we were saying in the presentation, that's a lot easier to do because now you have a person who's assigned to receive those questions, and they won't say, what's wrong with you, are you stupid? No, it's their job to help you with language or culture, or, even accent kinds of things. Like I said it in the presentation, my dear Filipino clients here, it's no longer resume. I know you can say resume. So don't say resume anymore. Don't do it. Not in a Canadian context, you know. Hopefully that answers the question, but this ambiguity, you have to be assertive more than at other times. And be willing to
Absolutely.
laugh at yourself. If you don't know, you don't know. You thought it was a
Mhm.
festival. It wasn't a party.
Exactly. And actually, another example that I thought about, Martin, it happened to me. And I was born and raised in Morocco and then moved to Canada in 2019. So then I was at my gym, and then we don't have like a huge locker room. So then there was like, yeah, there was another guy using the space, and I also needed to use the space. And he joked, we made small talk and said, oh, yeah, so we have like Murphy's Law here. I haven't heard of that in the past. So I just laughed it out in the moment. But then I went and asked a Canadian friend, okay, so this happened. Like I didn't understand what he meant. And then she explains, oh, yes, like if it's possible for something to go wrong, it will go wrong. Like we needed to use the space and everybody, we couldn't. So, yeah, and again, just ask questions, but definitely don't interpret something, especially if you feel that they meant something and you're not sure. Do not like go with that conclusion. Do your research, just put it on Google and you'll find it too. That's I should have done that. I shouldn't even have asked a friend, right? That was an easy example. But in case something is more complicated in the conversation, have a buddy, like Martin said, or a mentor, a local friend who would guide you there. Perfect. All right.
Can you
Martin,
imagine
by
if
the
my
way.
answers, Mark, can you imagine if my answers to all these responses were like, I just Google it?
Yeah, right. I know.
Why am I here today?
Right, that is a good instinct, though, especially now with AI's Chat GPT and Google Gemini. Like it could help get you an answer for things like Murphy's Law, something that you can find online. Perfect. And also, Martin, taking time into consideration, let me know when we will stop because we're going over time, and we do have a few concepts. I mean, a few. Sorry, I thought because there was a question in the chat. Jawad, yeah, Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. Go ahead and Google it, and trust me, you'll find the answer there. But yeah, let me know when we'll stop, Martin.
Yeah,
The
I have to let you and the others here know. Um, my next presentation is in about 25 minutes, so maybe about 10 more
Okay,
minutes, and then I can,
okay,
get the screen set up for that other stuff. And no, that presentation is not in today's job fair. Okay, so if you're not registered for it, then forget I
all
said
right.
anything.
All right, perfect. I'll keep that in mind. So yeah, a client asked, can lack of some soft skills impact your hiring potential, and can I learn while in the job? I believe you've tackled this already. Short answer would be yes, right? Many
Yeah,
employers would assess the ability of a candidate to fit in the workplace culture by asking behavioral questions during the interviews. And you mentioned observing, right? Can you learn while in the job? Yes, you can just observe and adapt and everything that Martin shared during this presentation, and you will definitely be able to learn on the job. Anything you would like to add, Martin, or we can move to the next question?
yeah. Just real quick, as you progress up the responsibility ladder of certain careers, your soft skills are going to be the important things. Like how do you negotiate? How do you shake hands? How friendly are you? Let's
Mhm.
pretend it's a car mechanic shop. The people on the ground with their hands in the car need to know what they're doing. But once you become the supervisor, you need to know how to relate to people and the customers, and be able to schedule people, and right. So now we've gotten a lot more relational already, just one step removed. And then you become the president of the company. And now you need to negotiate with the banks and the lease and the real estate and the expansion and the selling of stocks and shares. And now it's all soft skills. Like even though those are all technical skills too. You know what I'm saying? Often at the ground level of any career, the technical skills get you the job, but the soft skills help you keep the job and advance. You're always refreshing your technical skills. People in IT, they will never stop learning. People in medicine, they will never stop learning. There are new medications and new research all the time. But if you're advancing as far as responsibility and supervisory, managerial, it's your soft skills that need to be sharpened.
Mhm, mhm. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. And all right, the other question, how can I handle the workplace culture while transitioning into a new career or field?
Mm-hmm. That one's a little ambiguous to me,
Mhm,
because it's sort of that one is more like the content of what we were talking about in the presentation. So handling the transition, it's hard for me to give specifics that weren't already in the presentation,
mhm,
like the getting a mentor or being aware of your own level of assertiveness and how that compares, and like understanding your own brand and what's important for you to be presenting as your most important values. And
mhm,
really, I have found this to be true. If you're in a workplace, like let's take your top 5 values, and the workplace that or the job you're in only matches one of those values, you're not going to stay in that job very long. You're not going to be happy in that job very, very long, if at all. But if
mhm,
if you can get at least 3 or 4 of your top 5 workplace values matched, then your happiness, your ability to thrive in that spot are going to be higher and higher. And the soft skills, in a way, naturally come along with that, because everyone in that place values helping people. Let's say it's some nonprofit organization that helps people with their job search. Well, if that's a high value for you and you look around and everyone else seems to be really happy about helping people, it's going to be a place where you find workplace fulfillment. And the soft skills will be more quickly adapted because of that. Other people are working the way you want to work. It's going to, we say, rub off on you. That's an idiom of like, it's going to influence you just by being there. You still have to be open to it and observing it and learning, but it's going to happen more quickly because all the values are lining up as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, a couple more questions. So, what are some topics that newcomers should stay up to date on to facilitate small talk with Canadian-born individuals?
Okay, so I'll answer it in a negative. I'll say this is what you should stay away from. Okay, um, and I'm a hypocrite with this because I have the power to do it. When, for example, I will tell you, stay away from anything that could cause controversial responses or hurt feelings. So, what are
Mhm,
the things that people fight about? It's religion, it's societal issues like, do you believe in abortion? Or, like different kinds of aspects of morality. What one person thinks everyone should live like this, and other people say, who cares how anyone believes about how you should live? These are the topics to stay away from. Now, I've answered it negatively, and to answer it positively, everything else, everything else
mhm,
that doesn't cause controversy or is easy to fight about. And then some people will say Canadians are really shallow. Canadians only talk about like the weather. Well, there are 2 reasons for that. We are choosing a safe topic to begin with, but we're also really concerned about the weather because we could freeze to death.
mhm,
The I would ask open-ended questions, and we learn this in our soft skills courses. I would ask open-ended questions that cannot be answered with just yes or no. So, what did you do last weekend? This is
mhm,
a personal question. And if someone's going through marital difficulties and they just had a big fight last weekend, like they fought all weekend with their spouse, they could just say, oh, I went to go see a movie. Right? They don't have to tell you, oh, my marriage is in trouble. You go, okay, oh, sorry I asked. I was just getting to know you. Oh, I didn't need the whole emotional life history. So, yeah, just the topics that are going to be of less controversy. But as you're getting to know people, ask them open ended questions. You can ask
mhm,
things like, so do you have any children? That's a yes or no answered question. That's closed ended, but it's also controversial. Like some people have a hard time conceiving children, or some people have had infants die, or whatever it is. And so, be cautious. Be cautious. Do you live with family? Do you? What do you like to do when you're not at work? Like just stuff in the lunchroom as you're getting to know people. Those are good small talk kinds of topics and approaches.
Perfect. One last question. All right.
All right.
How can newcomers deal with an imposter's syndrome?
Oh,
Figured.
yeah. How can newcomers deal with imposter syndrome? Uh, I want to say everybody, but I can't speak for everybody. Everybody experiences imposter syndrome. There's not one question that gets asked here in the last 15 minutes that as it's getting asked, I'm not rising in nervousness and tension in my body. Will I know the answer to this? What if I look stupid? Right? What if there's
Mhm.
someone else in the world that could answer this better? Guess what? There are a million people in the world that could answer this better. But
Mhm.
I'm here. You're stuck with Martin. Uh,
Mhm.
how do you deal with imposter syndrome? Listen, that's that's too complex of an answer for me to address like in a minute, except to say welcome aboard. I'm there, I'm with you. The idea of when you're feeling nervous, though, I can talk about that more, but basics about nervousness is breathe well. Don't let your body lose oxygen and then your hands start shaking because your muscles don't have oxygen. Your voice gets a little crackier because you're not, you breathe well. Speak from the bottom of your diaphragm. Speak, support your breath as you speak. This idea of nervousness, which is imposter syndrome showing itself, right? Or imposter syndrome is a way of nervousness showing itself. I think everyone goes through that. What if um, what if they realized how little I know? I've had people reach out to me to ask questions, and I'm like, oh goodness, what kind of impression have I given you to make you think I know this? Like, oh, but there is a certain part of it that is like fake it. Don't be a fake person, but be like act confident when you're not as confident as you aren't. That's too many words, but you can in situations like giving a presentation, when you're in a room and there are even people in the room that know more about the topic than you do, you can still give a successful, confident presentation. So, what I want you to do is fake it, not pretend you know more than you know, not act like a snob and like I'm better than you, but act more confidently. And then often this imposter syndrome fear, oh, what if people find out what I don't know? It kind of goes into the background and fades away. Maybe not entirely, but once I'm answering a few questions, I'm comfortable. I don't think I know everything. I have a lot of experience I can rely on. And at worst, if I don't know the answer to something, I could say, that's a great question. I really don't know how to answer that. I'm so sorry. Um, Maybe email me and I'll have something later. But honesty along with a little bit of dishonesty, fake it. um,
Mhm.
I think it goes a long way. But I don't think it's unique to newcomers. I don't think it's unique to new parents. I don't think it's unique to anything new. We all don't know what we don't know, and then we try.
Valuable advice. And again, always, commit to a journey of self-growth and improvement. And something, if you don't understand something or you make a mistake, don't feel bad and like beat yourself down, but no, note it down, go do research and improve it. So the next time that's not going to happen. And, all of us will make mistakes. And just like Martin mentioned, like there will always be somebody who will do things better than you and worse than you. You're always in that middle, and everybody is like that. Right. So that's why we should create that psychological safety in our workplaces, like have people feel safe to make mistakes, not understand things. But that means, yeah, put in the effort to whatever you've done wrong or you didn't understand the next day. That's not an issue. Again, don't make the same mistake twice. And with that, we're going to wrap it up due to time constraints, and we're going to let you go check out other employers' booths. Martin, thank you so much for this amazing presentation.
Oh,
And thank you for all the clients. We had over 140, I think, attendees. So absolutely a wonderful crowd. Thank you so much for all of your questions. Again, a reminder for clients who had employment related questions, please click on lobby, go to the EC booth, and that's when you can ask questions about employment. All right, everybody, thank you so much and have a fantastic rest of your week.
bye-bye.
All right, bye.